Hello, my name is Abubakar Salim. I am an actor and the founder of Surgeon Studios.
Hello, I'm Sophie Simnett and I'm an actor.
Did you say you're an actor or a knight? Sorry, I just for some reason I heard you say that you were a knight, and I was like,
you
"That's
hear what
really
you want to
cool."
hear.
Okay, I'm gonna call you a knight from now on. How is it like being a knight?
It's a lot of layers. I always do think that, like, they're not comfortable in them, are they? No one's having a good time.
It's funny, like whenever I used to watch a show, like okay, so for example, like with House of the Dragon.
Yeah. Oh my God, are you in House of the Dragon?
Don't even. I am. No. But like, for example, like we're wearing all this armor, right?
Yeah.
But the armor is made out of rubber. So it feels amazing.
Oh, can you bounce off walls?
You can
and
literally,
stuff?
it's like the best thing.
It's so
great.
fun.
But it's all of the sound effects and everything like this that makes it sound like, oh, it's heavy,
Clink, clunk.
heavy, clink, clunky armor. But it's actually just rubber, and
It's not
amazing.
heavy.
No.
Does that not make you move differently than how you should?
The elements that make you move differently isn't necessarily the weight, it's the straps. So it's the straps that they have to strap you in to essentially move around. So yeah, that's what makes you move. And then when they add the sound effects, it makes it sound like, oh, so it's a suit of armor. But it's just pure rubber, which
Did
is
you
hilarious.
test how strong the rubber was?
How would I test that?
Like by throwing yourself against things.
Okay, I thought you meant getting in a fight.
Oh, yeah. Or getting in a fight.
Just could you swing that sword at me
just-
and let me see how well protected I am?
Sounds like stuff actors would do. So,
That's pretty
it's not
much.
far off.
No, but speaking of actors,
Yeah?
you are an actor.
I
not a
am,
knight.
it's true.
Right. That's great.
Rumors are true.
I'm interested to
Yeah.
know how you got into it. Did you go down the drama school route, or did you go down the basically gung ho, try it out kind of route? Like, what did you do?
Gun ho,
Yeah?
I would say. Yeah. I mean, I kind of knew I wanted to do it since I was a kid. Always was really interested in the theatre.
Yeah.
There were some really good local theatres. Like I grew up near the Lyric Hammersmith, and they had like
Oh,
loads of
nice.
really interesting programs there, which were like community led. So it was great because I just met loads of different people, and it was great to collaborate with that and partake in the community. And then my mum took me to a pantomime in Hounslow Treaty Centre.
That was the thing that turned you.
Yeah, and I saw there were some like kids in Goldilocks, and my mum likes to tell the story where she says that I was like, how do I do that?
It's so funny. Like I try and think of the moment that sort of changed me, and I think it was Beauty and the Beast.
What, the film?
Yeah, the film. I think it was the film.
It's a great film.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film, and I think like I've like the earliest memory of me reenacting the Beast transforming into a prince when it would happen. And I'd like pick up the blanket and I'd like turn to like, and I think that was the moment that made, I mean, my mum and dad would be like, oh, here we go again.
If there is
like,
footage of this, can we put it
I
in
don't,
here?
I don't think it is.
Or you can
It's like,
reenact it.
I could reenact it now.
Can we get a blanket?
Yes. Where's the blanket? No. But that's the thing. Like, and I kind of think about those moments. It wasn't like going to the cinema and watching like, I don't know,
Taxi
Marlon
Driver.
Brando. Yeah, or something like that. It literally was Disney's Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
That made me be like, oh, this is really cool.
No,
you know what I mean?
that's why I think animation and kids films are so important, like almost maybe more important than adult films. Yeah, but truly, like I am way more shaped than films I watched as a child than films I watch now, I think.
Right.
Because you're so self-aware of like how you think it's going to shape you, or like what opinions you should have, or what you do feel, and everything's so spaghettied in our brains now that trying to work out what this has triggered in you, rather than being so fresh and allowing those stories to mold you in the way
that it should. No, totally. So, okay, so yours was a panto. Do you remember what panto it was?
I think it was Goldilocks.
All right, okay, Goldilocks.
Yeah, because I remember
Okay.
there was a bear, there was a forest,
Okay.
and there were children. Because
Okay.
I thought, well, if they're kids, I'm a kid, I could do that.
You could do that.
Yeah,
right,
it was
okay.
very much, I was like, I want to do it now.
Okay.
But my parents, like, one in the industry, were like,
Right.
no, we've
okay.
worked hard so you could go to a nice
an actual
school.
nice school,
You're
yeah.
not going to be on Hounslow Treaty Centre.
Yeah.
I actually was on Hounslow Treaty Centre
Amazing.
3 years after.
Wow.
Yeah,
look at that.
manifestation. Aim high.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
And
It was also panto,
right.
but I wasn't good. Like for a long time, I was not a good actor. So I was the Christmas tree.
Hey, that's
For the whole show.
Being a tree is not hard. It's like it's not easy work, man.
These guns?
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Pure
It's like,
tree.
I'm sure, and the back and everything.
Yeah.
The patience.
Patience,
Yeah.
training, method.
Hey, you got to start
just had
somewhere.
a cut out of my face.
You got to start. Yeah, you got to start
So
somewhere.
when the
Gotta start
next
somewhere.
3-year-old comes, I'm ready.
You're ready?
I'm so ready.
Oh wow! And so you've been doing this then for a while. And so what would you say essentially was your first? And I personally don't believe in like that breakthrough.
Yeah.
That moment. But where would you say you were like, oh wow, okay, this is I'm really doing this seriously.
Well, when I was a teenager, I wanted to work, and
Right.
so I like signed myself up to all the online acting websites where they had auditions, and I would send myself off and go to strange places to do commercial auditions, like,
Right.
and so started doing bits when I was a teenager, and then I put on a play at the Lyric that my friend had written, and I directed and produced it,
wow.
which I fully funded by selling sweets from my locker, because the Lyric.
Wow, okay.
The Lyric.
Okay. Now we're getting dark here. That's okay. Sure.
They were amazing. They were like, you can have the space for a week, the theatre for a week. You could put on your show. 15, like, God bless them. It was probably, I don't want to. It was what it was.
Yeah.
And we had the rehearsal space, but we needed costumes and people wanted props, and I didn't have any money because I was 15. So I went to Poundland with like a massive trolley and bought all these sweets, and then I put them on sticks and made them into, they looked like little, you know. What am I trying to say? What you put on a barbecue? Skewers.
Oh, skewers.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. So
I was
you
like,
got creative.
I can upsell people, right? Because I went to a fancy school and I didn't have any
on
money.
Camera. She's selling you guys. Go on.
Sorry. And I was charging like £2 per skewer.
Wow.
Yeah. And people were buying them. So I
That's
made
great.
$2,000.
Oh my God.
Which funded the whole show.
Wow.
Business.
You're an entrepreneur. That's amazing.
But my point being is that that's how I think our agent, who we share,
I know.
which we love, shout out Charlie.
Yeah, shout out Charlie.
Sort of heard about, like, I think they followed me on Twitter or something, and I was
Okay.
like, oh my God,
Right.
a real agent follows me on
Yeah.
Twitter. And I'd had agents before, but they were just kind of commercial
Right.
stuff. And then I did a play about Oscar Pistorius, and that's where my agent saw me in.
Right.
Yeah. So then I was still in school, and my parents were like, oh.
You don't know whether yeah.
Well, just like how much time is this going to take out?
Yeah.
The plan was like,
To go to uni.
Yeah, they wanted me to-
Because you didn't go to uni, right?
I didn't know.
No,
I
yeah.
applied because my school, like, everyone had to.
Everyone had to. I remember that. I
So
remember,
stressful.
Yeah, it's so stressful and it's so silly.
So silly. So silliness.
I remember applying to uni knowing full well I did not
Yeah,
want to go.
me too.
And just being like, oh my God, I got to do this thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it wasn't a thing.
I mean, I'm glad. Well, they were also, they'd say like, oh, well, it's so much harder to not do it through the school. And I don't know, I think
Right.
they just wanted me to go. But I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make these grades.
Yeah,
I'm working.
I'm working. Like, yeah, I'm doing the thing.
I'm doing the thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh wow, okay. So you've been at it then for a while then.
Yeah.
Like, it's like in the sense of like it's been consistent since school in a way.
Pretty much, yeah. My first like paid job, I think I was like 13.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
And when was your first like sort of TV job? Was like, would you say, or like film job? Or
So my first TV job was like, I think I was in one episode of Dickensian, which was like a BBC
yes,
show.
I remember Dickensian.
Yeah, it was a great show.
It was a great show.
And I was like someone's niece or something.
Okay.
And I remember just, because they built the entire set in a studio, which I was like, this is the dream. It was like a 20-foot stage.
It's like going to Disney, but
It
you're
literally
in it.
is.
Yeah.
That.
Literally, yeah.
And I was just like elated to be on set every day.
Yeah.
And then, I think I had 2 lines, and one of my lines was to cue the main character.
Right.
And I had to be like, well, isn't this tea delicious? And I forgot that it's like set, camera, action.
Yeah.
And so I was there shaking in the background.
Sure,
And then they were like, set. And I heard and as action. I was like, well, isn't this tea delicious? And they were like, no, we got to say action, Sophie. And I was like, And all the blood
That's
just...
it. So I'm a failure.
Yeah, I was like, I'm done. I'm retired.
done. This is
I'm
it.
out. No, but that was like my first job. And then I did a film called Mum's List, which was still to this day like one of my favorite films I've ever done. My favorite project, and the director Neil is still one of my good friends, and
Cool.
I met one of my best friends through that job. It was a true story about Singe St. Green, who lost his wife to cancer, and it's a story about how he raised his 2 children alone and dealt with that grief. So it was a very special story, and we got to do it with Singe, and he's such an incredible person that it was, and we were in Bristol, and
This is amazing.
It was
This is
so beautiful.
Cool. I think, you know what, it's funny, like, because I always as well, like, I think about the journeys of what it means to kind of get into where you need to get to and everything. Like, I think I had a similar experience in regards to, I think my first job was I think it was a TV job. Yeah, it was TV, and it was doing a really small part in like this thing called The Jury.
Oh yeah.
And I had auditioned not knowing my lines. And because I didn't even know you had to learn lines for like an audition. And so I rocked up at like the Hubbards being like, yeah.
Not at the Hubbards.
I know, innit? Like, just rocked up, pieced up, and they were like, oh, okay, so are you ready? And I was like,
For what?
And they're like, the scene. And so,
How did you get?
Well, they gave me the scene.
But did
to
your
learn
agent not
outside.
give you the scene?
Well, at the time, I don't think my agent was great, but was he? I don't know. Anyway, basically, I think he did, but I think he just assumed that I would know.
Yeah.
Right. And I think so. It's partly on me in the sense of like I think I just didn't read the email properly. I just knew the location where I got to, which I still do to this day.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get an email and I'll be like, all right, just where am I going? Yeah. I'm like, oh, I've got a scene to learn. Like, so that's the
17
thing. You know what I
pages.
mean? It's like, yeah. So that was the thing. But I learned the scene outside. Like, they put someone else in front of me. They did their scene, and then I was learning it as I went, I did it. And then I got it, but I got the part. But what's hilarious, though, is that, again, keep in mind, I'm 16, right? I'm playing the older brother to an actor who graduated, I think, from RADA like for 2 years, right? So I'm playing his older brother, and I'm not speaking English. Oh. So I had auditioned for this role in English, not knowing that I would have to basically learn Sudanese. And so I ended up speaking Sudanese on the day. They taught me Sudanese, all these lines that I had to do on the day.
How many lines did you have?
It was quite a bit. And
That's
I remember
wild.
the pressure. I was like, this is insane.
Who taught you the Sudanese?
They just got a guy who knew Sudanese, and he was just like, yeah, this guy is going to teach you how to say Sudanese. And I'm like, okay.
Again,
and
can we put this clip here? Any Sudanese speakers, please?
Honestly, it was embarrassing. And what's even worse was, the scene was written as it's like a barbecue in America,
right?
But obviously, I don't know what it was, And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like, maybe they're gonna fly me to America. No, it wasn't even that.
I love the dream.
I think it was like in Wandsworth or something like that. It was literally
Dodgy end.
the dodgy end. And what ended up happening though is like it was in this like hotel, and apparently it was supposed to be like the bedroom. And I'm 16, man, and they're like, okay, you're just gonna be in your boxers in bed with your wife. And I'm like,
how old was your character?
Like, this is the thing. I'm supposed to be older, so I'm imagining like in my 30s, 40s, maybe.
What did you look like when you were 16?
That's the other thing, right? So I'm like literally thinking to
Grown-ass
myself, this is
man.
weird. This is so crazy.
Oh, that's a lot and quite scary.
It was.
Yeah.
But I think if it wasn't for that, I don't think that now, like, it's almost like everything else was like, oh yeah, this is fine. I did Sudanese, and like,
I did Sudanese in my boxes.
You know what I mean? So, but it was very interesting because again, my kind of realization of wanting to do this seriously was, I think there was a moment I was doing a sort of like a school play. Where we were doing Dante's Inferno, but it was like physical theater, and I was playing Satan.
School?
I know, right? I know. It was really cool. It was like an extra. Like I will always like Lauren Lindora was the drama teacher, and she is like, honestly, I will thank her till the cows come home because she just gave me a chance, and I ended up playing. I mean, she gave me a chance. She cast me as Satan.
She said, this is how I really feel about you.
This is how I feel about you. And yeah, but like, and I remember playing this role, and there was just this one guy from the audience. I don't even know who he is, and I don't even know why he was there. To be honest, I think he was maybe watching one of his kids and whatnot. But like, he kind of, in passing, came to me and he was like, "Hey man, you were really good." And I was like, "Oh, thank you."
You should
like,
be Satan more.
Yeah, you should be the devil. No, he was like, "Yeah," you should think of doing this seriously. And I think that was the moment where I was like, "Wait, hang on, I could do this
Yeah,
seriously."
sometimes you need someone else to be
know
like,
what I mean?
no, this is a thing you can do for real.
Yeah, and that was my moment. That was like, okay, cool. It's funny though. I met Charlie through drama school, because I went through the drama school route, and it was the first play that we were doing during the showcase of the third year. It was A Few Good Men.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was great. I ended up doing the whole "you can't handle the truth" that line
Again.
Yeah.
One more time.
But like, that's where I met Charlie. And again, it was that whole thing of all the agents and of all the kind of meetings that we had, Charlie was like, "Yeah, I want to sign you." Whereas all the other agents I remember talking at the time
Worked
were
for
like,
me.
"Well, this is it." They were like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, well, we'll just wait and see what you're doing in the next one." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, man."
Yeah,
Like,
and that just sets
really?
up a really
Weird,
unhealthy
like,
dynamic.
it does,
that,
doesn't
like,
it?
You're always having to reach for
You have to
them.
like fight for it, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So yeah, so it's funny how like we just have these weird moments of like, yeah, okay, let's do it, let's go.
I guess this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very surreal. So in regards to that, then, have you ever, like, I guess what I'm really fascinated by is, and I ask kind of actors this all the time. It's like, when it comes to the element of storytelling, and when it comes to kind of, embodying these characters and everything, how do you approach it? Like, do you feel like, do you have to know the whole world of it? Do you feel like you just have to know the character? Like, what do you see the role of the actor really is in regards to, like, films, TV, all this sort of jazz? Because I mean, like, for example, like, if I've had several sort of thoughts on this. There was one moment I remember where I was thinking, like, actually, A Few Good Men is a good example, where I was like, I've just got to learn this character, do my lines, and then move on. I don't need to know about the statistics of the abuse system of what was going on during the war and that kind of stuff. Or not during the war, sorry, within the army camps and all this sort of, like, the trainings of where they went through, and the Marine Corps and all this sort of jazz. But then I did another play at Pub Theatre, which was all about the Rwandan genocide. And it was absolutely important for me to be like, I've got to learn about this world, because essentially
This is an educational.
This is it.
Yeah.
And my character was in this world. But then surely as the actor, you've got to think like, but what's the difference from that and knowing that world than it is from A Few Good Men, for example?
I think when stories are so location specific or time specific, and there is a part of the actor's job which is well, I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're just looking at it as the emotion delivery, like showing how people felt, and that's all it is, and the direction and the setting is providing the context for the audience. And that's what I think. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to go about it, but I do think, like, if knowing those facts about genocide would have helped you access the depth of emotion you needed, then that makes total sense.
So yeah, and this is the thing, right? So I feel like, again, it's weird because at drama school, you're sort of taught to know everything.
Yeah.
And it almost takes you away.
Because it's like, then you're looking at facts and you just get lost in it. And it's like, that's what the other people's jobs are. And at the end of the day, like, even sometimes I find with self-tapes, like, I get so lost into trying to put myself in the world. And I'm like, no, this is a conversation between a mother and a daughter. It doesn't actually matter that she's a nun or that they're, even as, like, specific as I'm trying not to reference the exact self-tape that I was talking about.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. You gotta be like, even though it's not like directed by, I know what you mean.
But you have to just find what
core of it, right?
what you're doing in each scene is, and especially with breakdowns, people try and define characters by like 4 characteristics and then their job and like what they've been through. But it's like we change all the time.
Yeah.
And at any point we could react differently to how we would minutes ago.
Yeah.
So just choosing, I don't know, just finding truth in that.
Okay, this is really interesting. So have you ever felt that you missed out from going to drama school?
Yes. All the time.
Really?
Well, no, I mean, I kind of think I'm a little bit over it now. I was doing a Disney show when I was like 17 to 20, I guess. So
right.
kind of the time when people would be applying to drama school. And I kind of made the decision. I was like, well, I am working and I don't know where this is going to go. Do I drop out and then apply to drama school? Risk, but I also had a contract and I couldn't drop out, and that would have not just been really selfish.
Right.
And it wasn't really an option, but it was more like, do I do it after? Do I try and ride this path? But also I love learning. Like I loved school, and I loved hearing like what my friends were learning at uni.
Right.
And probably for like till I was maybe just like a couple of years ago, probably, I always felt like I wasn't fully equipped.
Yeah.
I didn't have the tools, especially like physically and vocally. And also just the experience, like, and the friendship group and the camaraderie and knowing what it was like to work. But then, I don't know, my drama school was the Disney show. So, and I learned so much from there.
It's funny, like I've had this conversation before, and you get 2 actors, the type of actors where they're like, especially ones who haven't gone to drama school, they're either like, I really feel like I missed out. Like I feel like I would.
To clarify, I don't feel like that anymore. But
no, but
they do make you feel like.
But they do make you do. But then you've got the other actor out there who are like, I'm really happy that I didn't, and I learned on the job. And I'll be honest, like from my perspective of going to drama school, like I love drama school, it was great, but I actually feel like for a very long time, I was almost like a worse actor than I was before I went in.
And you're not the only person who says that.
Right. Okay.
I think it just depends on who you are. And I think I'm very sensitive. I don't know if I would have been able to, because I had the vision so clearly of what I wanted to do, to go in with that. And, I hear about and this is not me going anti-drama school at all. Like,
for sure,
I think it's amazing.
For sure. It's a conversation though to have, because I think there's a lot of people out there who will almost convince themselves that they need to go the drama school route in order to get to where they want to get to.
I will say I do think it's harder. I think I had to do most of my hustling myself.
Right, okay.
And even now...
You're selling sweets and £2 out, £2 sweets, man. That's really...
I also got... They found out and they like tried to take it away from me.
No
it was a whole
way.
Thing. Yeah, I got called to the principal's office. Wow. Rebellion. But no, I still struggle now. Like I started in theatre and that's like where my heart is, but I've worked for 10 years and I've only had 2 theatre auditions. Because I didn't go to drama school. And I was working in film and television consistently for a couple of years. Right. And so they're like, well, why would we see you? Because you're not trained.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And, there are some people who only work with... And it's obviously a different medium. But if you're a good actor, you can do both.
You could do both. Absolutely.
And it's a really strange thing. And now it seems to me that either you have to be a huge name or a graduate.
Interesting.
And it's like, okay, so I guess I have to like just keep working to that because I'm not going to go back to drama school.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, also if you're that big, you don't want to, and it's the first time you've done theatre in however years, that's a hugely exposing thing to do.
That's terrifying. Yeah.
So I just think cast actors who are good and see actors who are good. Don't.
It's interesting though. Again, it's like there are so many different cogs and elements at play. And I know we were talking about this earlier about like sometimes you feel like there are more directors out there who almost you feel like don't know what they're doing than they are actually who do. And I feel like I think that was also another big realization that I had now actually, having a studio and also having done stuff behind the scenes, you realize that everyone has no idea what they're doing.
I know. Well, this is crazy. And like, so I do a lot of behind the scenes like stills photography for sets and stuff. And you just see everything when you're doing stills.
Right.
And also in such a interesting way because people are aware that you're taking a picture of them.
Right.
But you're also like you're trying to capture the moments where they're not. So you're seeing them. You see everything.
You see everything.
And how it's such a great learning experience for how to run a set.
Right.
But also, like, I've wanted to direct and write for years, but I've just put up walls being like, well, I don't know enough about lenses.
Right.
And I was, a friend of mine who's a director was like, you don't need to do
to.
that. And I was like, but in my brain, I'm like, I do not have the audacity to like go on a set and be like, well,
yeah, no, for
I've got
sure.
thoughts, but actually that is the only way to learn. And I wish I'd sort of harnessed that a little earlier, because now I'm like, oh, actually, yeah, but I also trust that things come when they do, and stories come when they do.
Yeah, I've learned as well, like, you don't have to, and I know this sounds terrible, but like, you don't have to know anything in order to direct. Like, and that tip was given to me also but like in the sense of like, a lot, like, you've got to have the vision.
Yeah.
You've got to have the idea.
Of course.
But you've, in truth, you have to let other people do what they're good at as well.
It's so much people skills.
It really is. That's it, right? And I think like that to me is something that I've had to learn. It's like, in the sense of like, you don't have to learn the lenses and learn all this sort of stuff. Like,
I do think it's helpful.
It's
I think
definitely
like,
helpful.
I certainly, the good directors I've worked with know exactly what they want to do with the lens, and they've prepped with the DP. And you know, I'm not a director yet, so who am I to talk? But like, I think it's really important to understand what every single person does on a set, because not only as an actor or as a director, but just it's such a hard. Whenever someone makes a movie, I'm like, you did it. You made a film. And anytime someone gets a bad review, I'm like, but they made the movie.
But they made it. They actually did it.
You know? And so understanding, I think having empathy to stop the chaos that happens on set when people get upset and we're running over and suddenly there's like an ego war. And it's like, if we just stopped and gave people time and kindness, and I know that there's 100 things, but if you understood why it's important that makeup do checks and you valued their job properly, then there would be no tension here.
Totally.
And you make sure we take off 2 minutes somewhere else.
Yeah.
And they don't feel underseen. Like, and you only learn that when you know how important everything is.
Yes, and I totally agree. I think there is definitely something to be said about knowledge is power in those spaces, and knowing like the importance of everything else. And I think that's why a lot of the time, it's funny, even when I've done voice acting and voice directing, the voice directors that I've worked with have been the ones almost who are actors as well. Yeah. And they've been really, really good because they kind of get it, right? They don't tell you how to read something. Not to say that, you know, voice directors, you know, who haven't been acting before, you know, always tell me how to do it. Like, there are amazing voice directors out there, but there's something about an actor directing you that feels almost like, oh, you understand me. Oh, you see me. Yeah. You get it. And it's very, it's interesting, I think, and that's because of, obviously, they know how it is to talk to an actor. So it's like, if you're able to then apply that to, on a film set of being like, not even just an actor, as you say, like with makeup or like, you know, again, with the DOP or whatever, like there is a lot of power there. But I think I am also just very amazed at how there are directors out there who literally are just like, an action. And it's like, is that all you know? Yeah. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's
the first word came out of my
first word that works. So yeah.
But then it's also crazy because they have to do so much prep. So they have like, I don't think it's possible to be like you have to get on set. You have to do a certain like I don't think it's fair to say that because you cannot appreciate where a director works. And they can still make a great movie, or they can, and it also depends on the project. Like maybe, and the actor, like some actors don't want direction at all.
No.
I'm like, I don't want you to, like, pat me on the head, but just be like, we got it, good, move on. So I can go, cool, we've done the job, and we can move on. This isn't, the emotional conversation isn't about like me and my skills and my feelings. It's about like what we're trying to convey.
Have you found, like, for example, with that then in mind, especially with the way that you go for it, like, do you find less direction better then, or do you enjoy being directed? I
enjoy being directed. Like, I like that filmmaking is a collaborative process. I'm a team player. Like I like doing that, especially, and you know, when you respect and admire your director, then you want to create the vision between you. You know, you want to make sure that everyone's ideas are coming together. But certainly you can be over-directed, and then that's frustrating because, and again, it's the type of directing. Like, if someone's giving you a line read, you're like, Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I won't be doing that. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to make a great film.
Yes.
It's like, I remember my friend just did a wedding speech, and another friend was like, look, everyone wants you to do well. Like, don't worry. Everyone wants you to, like, everyone's laughing because they want it to be a good speech.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing with filmmaking. Like, everyone's there because they care about their job. Otherwise, it would be an insane thing to do if you didn't care about it. As in, because the job's so hard for everyone involved. And I think just trusting in that is how, as a baseline of how to run a set or how to trust other people, is important.
It's so funny. I think we forget that. I think we genuinely forget, like, everyone's there to kind of move towards the direction of wanting it to be good.
Yeah.
Like, and even with audiences. So I'm finding as well, I'm having to relearn that of, like, you know, people aren't looking for you to fail or to critique you. They actually want to have a good time.
Yeah, otherwise they wouldn't pay.
And this is sort of, it's easy. I think it's easy to forget that because, again, you can receive so much praise and so much positivity, but at the same time, there's always that one negative comment that will stay and stick with you.
Yeah.
But, like, ultimately, everyone just wants to have a good time. But I think there is, as you say, like, there's egos, there's all sorts of muddling, there's all sorts of, like, thoughts that kind of block that thought process and kind of feeling that you end up being like, oh, they're working against
bitter.
me. Yeah, exactly.
The industry all gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's very interesting. It's very weird because, again, I guess I'm very aware that everyone's journey is different, and something that when it comes to even telling people or you know, younger actors or even just younger creators, writers, anyone, like, I'm almost trying to say, like, you don't have to. Even though my journey was one way, it isn't necessarily the right way.
Oh my God,
like,
no.
And there's no such thing,
No.
right? And that's why I'm kind of really interested to hear, like, other people's journeys and how they got in, because it just shows the variance of, like, there is no way, as long as you know the vision and you know where you want to go.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's important and that's what's kind of key. You know, if you want to get into acting, yeah, sure, just do it. You know, if you want to get into games, just try and figure it out. Like, it's
as in make the game or make the film.
Make the
not
film,
like,
make
it.
just make it. Just make it, and, you know, be successful. Be in the next Marvel film. No, but it's like, but that's the thing, and it's very. I think that's what's important about this whole thing. It's like, if you're driven by the act of wanting to tell stories, or you're driven by the act of wanting to play, like, just follow that instinct and you will kind of find it, you know?
Totally. And you find people who have the same feeling. And like, if it's so easy to lose, and then you meet one person who has that and you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's great. Like, I'm making an animation right now and my animator has got the best brain. He's just so creative and
just free.
And the word I'm looking for is, like, he makes things out of other things.
Right, okay.
Inventive, I guess.
Inventive, yeah.
We were going through a budget, and he was like, why don't we go and forage in the wood and get some, like, sticks and leaves and stuff, and then tell this story with them and see how that comes out.
Right.
Just as, like, a different, I was so stuck in the way I wanted to do a certain section of the film, and I was like, yeah, what great, like, how
that's
cool.
Brilliant.
That's
a
job. I don't know.
Wow. Is the animation 2D or 3D then?
It's a stop motion.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is this something that you've written?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're doing it.
I'm trying.
Yeah, you're doing it. But that's it. That's all you can do, right?
Yeah.
You can only try and just see what happens.
Totally.
And you learn from it that way. Oh, that's so dope. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that you're into animation too.
Oh, I love animation. And stop motion. I watched Peter and the Wolf. And it kind of changed my brain chemistry. I was like, wow. Yeah. And I'd written a film it's very dark. It's about loneliness in children. And I'd given the character, like, a dog and a bird, and, like, there was a fire, and I was like, oh my God, I've really given myself a challenge. It's like my first time directorial debut. And then I watched Peter and the Wolf and Anomalisa back to back, which is one of my all-time favorite films. And I was like, whoa, this could be an animation. And then I started playing with, like, puppet ideas and ball and socket puppets. And it's amazing how, I mean, this is the same with games. Like, if you want to tell a particularly sensitive story, doing it through a medium of animation or through a game just makes it so much more accessible.
Yeah.
And like that reflection process of what it's done to you is a little longer, a little more gentle.
Yeah.
Rather than like, you know, some of my favorite films are so dark, and I don't want to, but it's not that they're not great films, but they are hard to watch.
They're hard to watch.
And they stay with you for so long.
Yeah.
And the faces of the people, of the actors, is so traumatic.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking. I see my little puppets and I'm like, oh. But there's a dissociation, which is so useful for storytelling.
It almost allows it to connect. The message is able to kind of transfer to you a bit clearer.
Yeah.
Rather than necessarily it being so you don't bring your own sort of elements to it, if that makes any sense. I totally agree. I for me, I think that's the reason why I've always liked fantasy worlds and sort of these worlds that are bigger and wider than the world that we live in today, because in my eyes, that's the best way of passing a message or exploring themes. Because you're right, there is something to be said about watching a film where it feels almost too close to home.
Yeah.
And it really it becomes almost like an experience where you can't switch off and think, oh man, I would have maybe have thought of it differently. It's almost like it becomes personal. And not to say necessarily that we need to, make more fantasy films or anything like that.
I think we do. No, I
really?
truly think so. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, I think adventure and fantasy is kind of why we made films in the first place.
Right.
It's escapism.
It's escapism, yeah.
And then we were like, wow, we can actually tell story. That is what storytelling is. And I
Right.
think you're telling the same story, but in a more accessible context.
Yeah.
Like when I go to the cinema, I want to go with a big bowl of popcorn and I want to go to a different world.
Right.
And yes, you can do that with very beautiful, intense family dramas. Of course you can. And it might make you appreciate your own family, or it might make you question things. And that's so important. But sometimes it feels more like it's making you ask so many questions.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's good we would have gone to therapy. Which I think is so important. And honestly, most of my favorite films are films like that. Like I love dark French cinema. Like I love human tensions, because we are all so confusing, and it's interesting to unravel why people do things.
Yeah.
But fantasy is truly like escapism is important. And I feel like our world right now is so overwhelmingly busy, and we are so overwhelmed with micro like movements and conversations, and we dissect everything so intensely. I find it so overwhelming. Like I can't, like social media is so overwhelming, all of it.
Oh man, don't even get me started on that.
And for everyone,
even
whether you love it or you hate it. And I think that fantasy allows us to be like, and a dragon could come in, or like, and now we're surfing a waterfall. Like you access the imagination we have as children, which is, and curiosity is like the best part of being human. And I just think that we should have more adventure.
We should
films.
lean into that more.
Yeah, world building is so hard and so important. And that's all we do when we're kids.
Yeah, that's
like,
so
why
true.
do we stop?
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I think like, I feel that. I think it is that whole thing of, man, I guess it depends on, because again, I totally get that. I feel like it's one of those ones where you're not saying like, oh yeah, we should just always make Marvel films, or we should always make that. But I think you're right in regards to that feeling of we should lean more into the childish nature of ourselves, which is the imagining of dragons or even, being in a sci-fi kind of cool world, but still be able to hit on themes that feel very kind of human.
It's the easy, I mean, I spoke about Anomalisa. It's an entirely animated film, and the best review was like, this is the most human film of the year, and there's not a single human in it. Wow. Like that's it.
Yeah.
It's sometimes using it, sometimes it's too on the nose,
right?
That it's not believable when it's humans, because you're like, oh, we do act like this, but we never see people because it's always in private moments.
So wait, so your film then your film started as a live action then?
Yeah.
You wrote it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I really want to direct, and I was like, let me just whip something out that I can write. It's a short, and I'll direct it. And then as it went past, I was like, oh, damn, this has got to be animation. But now it's been like 2-3 years in development because animation's so much more expensive, and I can't animate, and I have an amazing studio attached, but like, you know, they don't fund. So now we're trying to find producers, and it's again not a path I thought I would be down at all, but I've learned so much.
It's funny how you end up finding, especially I think this as creatives, like when you find what it has to be and you can't let that go.
I know, and I'm trying to be chill. I'm like flexible, but I'm like, but it could be so good. But it's also really fun to like indulge in that headspace and be like, oh, you're right. It could be made with a leaf, and it could be as powerful.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it could be made with humans, or it could be in a fantasy world. Like this scene could be applicable in any world that I tell it, as long as the emotional core
is honest and truthful. That's how you kind of build and play into it, right? That's where you kind of go forward with it. That's really fascinating. That's really cool. I mean, so you're going down the animation route, stop motion animation, which is really cool. I think the one thing I could think of is like Wallace and Gromit, or you know, like
well, all of Isle of Dogs and Wes Anderson's films.
And all that kind of, and it's fascinating because it is this tool that almost feels childlike.
Yeah.
And do you think so? And again, I guess it is that part of that element of kind of escapism and kind of, I guess the question really is like, how do you feel by making it in that medium, but also dealing with, you know, themes of, for example, loneliness or elements like that? Do you think that accessibility of, you know, making it for everyone can still inspire, you know, for example, an older person to be like, I want to make a film about, you know, death, or like a kid to be like, actually, I want to play into this world. And like, do you think that's the reason as to why you go down that route? Or
I think so. I think we were all kids and we all played, and we all accessed that in different ways. But part of the reason puppets are so interesting is because they are toys technically, and so like. And because our toys are children in the Bay, in the film I'm making, it reminds us of being a kid and choosing the storyline, the power of the imagination, and that you have complete control over what happens to these. You know, you can make it happy, you can make it sad, and when we're kids, why do we choose the stories that we tell? What are we trying to work out and process in our own little lives? That we use play to understand.
Yes, it's interesting actually how almost as kids the emotions are so much more potent and live.
But they're clear. Whilst now we're so fogged by everything, and with you know, sadness and anxiety and things which kind of fog how you feel, and we're out of touch with our bodies and all these things. Whilst with kids, you watch The Lion King and you're like, this is sad. This is happy. We're dancing. It's good. Hakuna Matata. You know, and that's why I think now still we respond in the same way, because not only are we reliving, we're like accessing that kind of emotion. I think animation allows you to go back and access that a bit, because you're a bit unassuming. You're like, well, it's an animation, so I'm not going to feel it as deeply.
It's almost disarming you in a way.
So that when, you know,
when those emotional moments hit, it's funny. I'm gonna plug it. This is exactly how I feel when I watch Bluey, man.
Okay, I could talk for so long about Bluey. I know we don't have time, but no. I had a fever for 3 days. I watched every episode of Bluey.
Oh my! It is something
when
else.
He wakes up and he's like, I wonder if people are watching us, and then they like go out and
man, like honestly, Bluey. But this is it. It's so disarming. It is so disarming, and I think there's like the beauty of the detail of, you know, you're looking from the parent's perspective, but then you're looking at the kid. Like it's
because it's his POV in a way, but then it changes.
Yeah.
And also, oh God, I love Bluey. I don't even have a child. I just had a really high. I mean, I was like fever, and I was like, this is amazing. This is the world. But even because we're hearing children's voices, I think so often children are overlooked because we're like, well, you're so young, you don't know everything. They know everything.
Yeah.
They are way more in touch than we are. Yeah. They're way more honest.
Yeah.
And so I think when we hear like this high-pitched voices, we're detached. And then that's why when kids say such profound stuff, you're like,
it really hits.
oh my God.
It's like, wow, okay. Yeah, that's so true.
Your world is small but so vivid and important, and actually like the core of what it is to be human. We've just gathered all this stuff along the way that's kind of filled our brains. So Team Bluey.
Team Bluey, man. No, for sure. Well, look, I just want to say thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me. I'm
so
flattered that you had me.
This was lovely, and we'll, I'll definitely want to when your stop animation film is out.
Yeah.
We will come back and dissect and talk about it. Like, yeah,
Go fund me, please.
Go fund me, there we go. No, seriously, no, I really appreciate the time taken to actually talk about this, because it is something that we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.